Can you remember the last time you cared about a Hollywood's award ceremony? Because for me, it was this.
Their job isn't acting anymore. It's going to the gym twice a day and taking steroids. Really? Have we got an award for most ripped junkie?
Ricky Gervais really highlighted that an award ceremony is supposed to reflect the feeling of the audience. And after he probably didn't get fired, but didn't come back again, it was never really the same.
We were going to do an in memoriam this year, but when I saw the list of people that had died, it wasn't diverse enough. I thought, nah. Not on my watch.
That's where this article comes in, not for the topic that they're actually talking about. I'd be really dumb for the Oscars not to nominate challengers. I mean, the picture of challengers tells me everything I need to know about why it shouldn't win Best Picture. For decades, it's been ridiculous that two men are fighting over this woman, and you're like, you could just go outside, you can do better. But in this, you're like, actually, I don't know why she's in this picture. It just comes across like the guys would be much happier on their own. In fact, the only thing that remains the same over romance stories is if they were going to fight, it wouldn't be over that. So it's not the movie about the Oscars that I agree Variety with. It is the point, though, that the Oscars has a problem, and so does Hollywood in general. Because the article is essentially, I like this movie, I think it deserves to win, but it's probably not highbrow enough for the, I was really trying to come up with a better term for them, but I think pretentious tart is about as accurate as I can get.
Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. Come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your god, and f*** off.
I'm not asking you if this movie will win just because I personally like it. I'm asking it because it represents the type of movie that Hollywood needs to be making. While she calls it shrewdly crafted, seductively entertaining, unabashedly accessible. I mean, this follows a love triangle between Zendaya, her husband of 13 years, and her ex-boyfriend, all of which we're supposed to believe can't decide whether they want this mid or not. Also, Zendaya is 28, so if her husband was of 13 years, she would have been 50. Don't do the maths, this is Hollywood. But I care that this is a mid-budget drama, you know, the thing we used to call a movie. It's now a fading form because before it used to be the bread and butter, whereas now it's vanished. The only things you get at award shows, or even in Hollywood at all anymore, are either mega blockbusters or Oscar bait. You know the ones which absolutely nobody sees. Their main storyline will be something like decrying racism in a manner that makes it easy to agree.
Because I am black and gay and a woman, there are aspects of identity that have been traditionally, historically persecuted.
Which is actually a bizarre statement of Hollywood to put out at the moment. That maybe someone should tell Cynthia Erivo to shut up. Or Hidden Figures, which tells the story of 3 African-American women who work at NASA during the space race. Like most Hollywood films based on true stories, Hidden Figures was embellishing the truth. Or where we make an absolutely gripping movie about some kind of disability, like being the only non-deaf member of your family. My favorite is Jojo Rabbit, which features a 10-year-old boy realizing the evils of socialism. Oh my god, it was a Taika Waititi movie.
What you least expect that you're going to want to see is Thor going through a midlife crisis.
Waititi and Putoff plays a very... Oh, this is the part he was made for. He was born to play this role. But you can really see the problem with this kind of movie when it scored a 58 on Metacritic, making it one of the lowest scoring films ever nominated for Best Picture, which was nominated because of what it was talking about, rather than the movie. This leads the stories that are being made to either being massively expensive, major blockbusting movies that have to make $1 billion to be profitable, or more, or cheap, useless crap that nobody wants to watch, which are only made for the award ceremonies, as opposed to the useless crap which is made that has to make $1 billion. What we're missing nowadays is the low to medium budget movies of which you could make 10 of for the price of a big blockbuster that could cater to a niche audience, be far more likely to be profitable. It just wouldn't be as profitable as a billion-dollar movie. But as you make 10 of them, who cares? There is really no downside to it. More people get paid, cinemas have more movies to go and see, and the audience gets more niche, specialist, actually targeted at their movies that they'll like way more than the billion-dollar ones, which by necessity are required to flatten down everything to appeal to a wide audience, otherwise known as the lowest common denominator.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to have sex with my brother.
Cut. Thank you.
As opposed to the Oscar bait movies, which are so specialist that they only appeal to professional critics.
I feel like history is on a progressive trajectory.
That's why I like this Variety article, because I absolutely despise the movie she's talking about. But this is literally, it's not made for me, and I'm more than happy for her to get her sick and twisted romance fanfiction. as long as I can get what I want as well. If you want to pretend two guys will fight over a 5, that's fine by me. The film is cunningly written, hypnotically structured, brilliantly directed, and dazzlingly shot, with some of the finest acting of the year. In fact, the main downside of the film is that they had to replace all the seats after every movie due to water damage. Well, that and the fact it cost $55 million to make to $96 million worldwide basically means don't put Zendaya in the next one, it'll be cheaper. But she says this did way better than a lot of other movies. And so if you don't have room for this kind of movie, well, what movies are you putting up for it instead? Brutalist, Anora, Amelia Perez, Nickel Boys, A Real Pain, A Different Man, September 5th. I'm not joking when I say, have you heard of any of these? I'm not particularly a movie guy, but doing this job, just by osmosis, you tend to hear about more of the movies than your average guy in the street. I don't know what these are. A visionary architect flees post-war Europe to rebuild and witness the birth of America. Well, I mean, CBR did say if someone makes a film about World War II, they will receive countless nominations. Anora is about a stripper who gets married to a 21-year-old that would prefer to party and play video games. Oh, it sounds stunning, doesn't it? Amelia Perez is a French musical crime comedy film. We literally just got a load of random words and crammed them together in that description. She celebrates her fight for truth and freedom. Nickel Boys follows two African-American boys who were sent to an abusive reform school in Florida, shot in a first-person view. I haven't been looking at these. Budget, $23 million. Box office, 70,000. Nomination for Best Motion Picture. 5 nominations at the Critics' Choice Awards, including Best Picture, made $70,000. It made back less than 1/328th of its budget, and that's without the cinema's cut or any marketing. By the time the Oscar nominations are announced on January the 17th, we will say that some people will have seen these movies, but not a lot. I'm not saying these films themselves aren't worthy. I am. I have a feeling that if any of these were the best films of the year, I'd have heard of them. Most people would have heard of them, but a number of them, I'm sorry, have been overpraised. Notice the sort of cautious, apologetic way that she had to say that. I think it's a she. Judging from the movie, I was just assuming. Owen, gotta be honest, didn't see that one coming. Not like they did in that movie. As an aside, this guy on the right of the picture is rumored to be the next Bond. Or at least in the running for it. It's as suave and sophisticated as a unicorn fart. First we had Iron Deficiency Man, and now we've got Genetic Abnormality Man. This is the kind of guy that would be scared to walk down a dark alleyway alone. He's as intimidating as a pumpkin spice latte. But really, what did we expect in a 2024 Bond? Especially when this is the last one. No, these films are anointed as Oscar movies right from their very premiere to get released 3 to 6 months later and nobody watches them. Amelia Perez is a Netflix movie, which means we'll never know how many people aren't watching it. This creates a boutique bubble of cinema, which acts to make fewer and fewer people care about the Oscars, or even to feel that there is an essential connection to them. And I actually think it goes wider than the Oscars. This is all award ceremonies. The award ceremonies don't represent the will of the audience. They don't represent the taste of the audience. All this is self-congratulatory nonsense, where they pat each other on the back and tell each other how great they are. This is why Ricky Gervais's presenter was so glorious. He was one of the only people to go up there and tell them what they needed to hear. The problem was, they didn't want to hear it, and so he never came back to do it again. The next guy that presented it, he tried to do the same thing, but not only was he completely talentless.
Yo, I got the gig 10 days ago. You want a perfect monologue? Yo, shut up. Slow down. I wrote some of these, and they're the ones you're laughing at. Look.
He ruined all of his own material by apologizing for it.
Big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL. We have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. I swear. There's just more to go to. Here, sorry about that.
And you can't apologize for a joke, because good jokes tend to have a core of truth about them. Something recognizable that speaks to something you're not allowed to say. It's like when people say, you can't joke about that, that's a stereotype. I'm like, well, you stop being the stereotype, and I'll stop joking about it.
Way to set feminism back a few decades.
Now, the films above could be given an award at the Independent Spirit Awards, but his movie won't be chosen by the Golden Globes because it possesses a quality that's increasingly anathema at the new art-conscious Oscar industrial complex. It's fun, which is now close to the Oscars' kiss of death, and you can see why. Strangely, in a land of superhero movies where people have just been, can you just take it seriously, please? Hollywood refuses to, and yet they do take themselves ever so seriously, which is why they don't like superhero movies. Rather than realizing that an actor is just a circus clown who gets paid more because his industry scales further, instead they all think they're artists, which leads the critics of the movies to believe they're art critics. And as anyone who has ever watched an art show will be able to tell you, there is no one more pretentious than an art critic.
If you manage to look past his little marble ghoulies, you'll notice there's an incredible amount of detail all over the rest of Michelangelo's body.
I once watched an art critic wax lyrical for over 15 minutes about a rectangle on a page. Don't you see the hand-drawn lines? The waviness of his brush, it symbolizes a portal into another realm, and the wavy line symbolizes it's enterable. You can go through this portal, it's leading you into another world. I'm like, no, it's because he was a skillless hack, you useless tart. He was so crap with a brush, he couldn't even paint a straight pissing line. That is the Hollywood critic. And it's not even just the Hollywood critics, it's also Hollywood creators. So of course they're gonna hate the superhero movies and really, really adore all their art pieces, which nobody can stand. We have recent examples of this. We had Quentin Tarantino praising the rotting placenta that is Joker 2, saying it's an FU to Hollywood and to comic book fans, because that always works. The Joker directed the movie. I could see this movie on a transcendent level. It's absolutely beyond the comprehension of you common plebs. And it's not even really his interpretation of the movie that I disagree with. I think this is exactly what the movie intended. It's the whole, I like it, I really like it, that is the pretentious part of it. Just like Christopher Nolan, who said that Gladiator 2, an epic 2, 3 best of a movie, was his favourite movie of 2024. It must be a remake and a sequel in one. A testament to his brilliance. Balances the individual pathos of the original with the expansionist demands of a sequel's central theme. Brings a lifetime of experience in a controlling tone. Incredible, hyper-observant, multi-camera, mise-en-scene. Masterfully wrestles the action to clear jaw-dropping sequence after sequence, not just to entertain, but drive us to an awareness of the movie's themes. Few filmmakers have ever so worked so invisibly on multiple levels. In films from Blade Runner to Thelma and Louise, Gladiator 2, the visual density of Scott's art serves as foil for his underlying thematic clarity. What an arsehole. This is the kind of guy that sniffs rotting grapes and goes, I can sense a baboon's armpit on a winter's breeze. It's pretension beyond any kind of reasonable level. A midwit's attempt to innovate simply by being more flowery with their language than the last person. That sounded complex. Must have been really smart. Combined with, quite simply, pretending that you're superior to everybody else, you have a more discerning palate, a more discriminatory palate, by being able to like things that nobody else does. You're saying this is crap? Well, I like it, and that makes me better than you, because I'm unique. I'm just seeing things in it that you can't. That puts me above you. This is the same with people that like modern art and Oscar bait movies. By liking things which are truly awful that nobody can actually enjoy, you separate yourself from the herd and then try and spin yourself as a sort of elite class that can just see things on levels that nobody else can perceive. But if you listen to them, they'll be able to educate you on how you can reach their level. Of course, because that depth doesn't actually exist, that's why we have to be pretentious and come up with the flowery academic language. If we explain things to you in normal terms, you'd see through it. You'd be able to tell that there isn't actually any content behind the words. That leads to the Oscars being a combination of things like, Barbie or Wicked. Mega blockbusters that do so well they can't really ignore them without coming across as idiots. The one thing they're trying to avoid. But the middle budget movies, the ones that should be the bread and butter of cinema, they vanish because there's no prestige to be had in liking those in the first place. There's no prestige to be had in making them. You can lower yourself as a creator to the common plebs, but at least you get to make $1 billion superhero movie. Or you can make an art piece. Have you ever heard the story of the paraplegic Hagrid and the horrific abuse that he struggled with at the hands of Harry? Note, I'm also not saying that these critics are lying when they say they like the movie. I just think they put a lot of effort into convincing themselves that they like the movies. People will put in a lot of work to convince themselves of anything, no matter how untrue it is, if it means they gain social status. Hell, just look at California. But does it matter if Challengers doesn't receive a nomination for a movie? It's been successful, people like it, and it was profitable. But that's not good enough. One of the key purposes of the Academy Awards is to define and honor the value of the film industry. Reward smart crowd pleasers that Hollywood should be making more of to save its future. The film incarnates the art of movies every bit as much, if not more so, than the dourly engrossing, self-consciously allegorical ersatz ersatz masterpiece, like The Brutalist. Once again, notice how the moment we had to start critiquing the movie, suddenly all the words doubled and tripled in length. No, I have to see like I'm on their kind of level, so I'm going to describe something as dourly engrossing, self-consciously arrogolical ersatz masterpiece. Because when you combine words like that, there is a level of some people are impressed, and then once you start to understand them, it's just so transparently try hard, you're like, oh please. Get over yourself. But this is the kind of attitude that Hollywood likes to perceive itself as. You wouldn't find language like that critiquing a clown in a circus. But that's all Hollywood is. They just refuse to accept the reality. If a movie like Challengers is nudged aside by the Oscars, that just devalues it. Oh, a dazzlingly fun movie that was popular, that's not up to our standards. And that often means that these movies cease to exist. They stop being made. Everyone wants to improve their career, so you either want to do something that gets awards, or do something that has massive budgets, and so just by having your name attached to it will improve your future career. Or so you what lose out on is all the middle movies, which the audience actually likes, which are profitable for everybody, but nobody wants to make. This is doubly bad when all the inexperienced people that would make smaller kind of things and then gradually build up in experience and so build up through the ranks of sort of short, tiny budgets, medium budgets before moving on to massive productions, no longer have that tree to build through. The bulk of people doing middle work isn't there, and so you end up with people graduating from shorts to massive productions without a body of work to back it up, and then they fail, destroying IPs as they do it. Look at the people making Rings of Power. How many massive IPs have you seen where if you go and look at the writers or creators in general, they have next to no work by their name? This isn't just a side effect of inclusion and crowbarring people into positions that they don't belong in. It's actually a fundamental aspect of how Hollywood works now. Over the years, the Oscars have been accused of many things, from vulgarity to irrelevance. The last thing the Oscars should leave themselves open to be is being accused of snobbery. But that has been an aspect of the Oscars forever. It was just never this pronounced before. There's always been Oscar bait, but as long as those middle budget movies got made, it kind of didn't matter. You can have an Oscar being given to the paraplegic Hagrid story, as long as awards reward the other things that actually matter and encourage them to get made more of. The requirement of the critics to indulge the stick up their arse isn't actually that negative on its own. It's just the more and more extreme it gets, the more and more polarized it gets, the stronger the effect is, to the point where you're like, no, you just can't do that anymore. No, you've managed to destroy the industry with it. You can't do it now. When the savior of your award ceremony is Will Smith smacking a man around the face, maybe it's time to realize that your award ceremony needs to change. And that might just mean changing the people that make the awards. Because, oh sure, you want them to all be involved in the industry, but they could be part of the reason your industry is being destroyed. They could be contributing to the lack of movies which the audience likes, even if they don't. Because it turns out the critics can be the problem. Just like gaming journalists contributed to the downfall of video games because they were making games trying to please the game journalists who didn't represent the audience, the same is happening with movies and movie critics. And if the current crop of people at the Oscars despise things like fun, if they don't align with the audience and don't reward the movies that the audience actually likes, if they don't encourage more of the movies which are profitable so their industry continues, then places like the Oscars will need to adapt and improve. Otherwise, they may very quickly find out they don't have an industry to represent at all. As do you really need Hollywood critics holding award ceremonies when all of your movies come from Korea? Like any entertainment industry, you can either represent the audience or you won't have one. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you liked the video. Subscribe. More videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. And bye-bye.